Welcome to the New 100 Longevity Campaign. I'm your host, Linda Cooper, and as you guessed, I'm not a doctor, not a scientist. I am a lifestyle expert, but like so many of you, I am extremely interested in optimizing my health span and my lifespan, which is the definition that scientists call longevity. So the purpose of this is to educate and inspire the average person, because a lot of the information that we'll be sharing is not common knowledge. It's just been conveyed within the scientific community, peer-to-peer, in white papers and in journals, in really hard to understand jargon that the average person, even if they did get to see it, wouldn't comprehend. So I feel that knowledge is power, and to be your own best wellness advocate, that this will hopefully bridge that gap and bring this incredible information to the masses, because I want to take the science of aging out of the laboratory and into the real world. So I'd like to welcome today's guest, Dr. Sandra Kaufman with the Kaufman Protocol. She's a longevity expert and book author of Why We Age and How to Stop It. So let's go see Sandra. Hi, Sandy. I've got my props. I love the stack for all my supplements. And oh my gosh, this is like my new Bible. I love your book. Welcome.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be with you today. This is so exciting on the maiden voyage of your longevity campaign.
Thank you. Well, I loved your book for so many different reasons, but primarily because it spoke to the everyday person that really doesn't know much about the subject matter. It was very easy to understand, and what my favorite part was you actually provided like the how-tos of, you know, ways to supplement to anti-age, which is incredible.
Right. So I started down this pathway from a completely selfish point of view. It was for me and me alone. And I was delighted to figure out that there were actually things that you could do. And I decided to sort of share this knowledge with everyone. But I also figured out that people don't quite understand the lingo of the scientists, and it's really convoluted and confusing. So I decided to try to translate that information so that anyone that wanted to know could know. So that's why the book is the way that it is.
Yes, and it's perfectly written for the every person, which is really the reason why we are doing this series, because there's so many incredible scientific breakthroughs that just the average person doesn't know about. So thank you. So tell us a little bit about your background.
So first and foremost, I guess I'm a physician. I'm presently the chief of pediatric anesthesia at a pretty big children's hospital. And that has nothing to do with anti-aging, because that's always what people ask. But what it does do is it gives me a lot of time to study pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics and chemistry, physiology, and all of those exciting things. Before that, I was a cell biologist. So I spent a lot of time, staring at little microscopes and understanding the way cells work. Before that, I was a plant physiologist, which doesn't mean anything other than the fact that it was kind of fun to go play in jungles. And I'm also sort of an adventurer. I like to mountain climb, I rock climb. I've tried to kill myself several times, kind of by accident. But the goal of adventuring was the idea that I wanted to be able to do it as long as possible. And I didn't like the idea of aging. So I thought, you know what, I am going to beat this aging business, figure it out so I can live as long as I can, as well as I can.
Yes, well, I don't want to age either, and so do our viewers. They have no desire to age. So. And not to mention the fact the World Health Organization just recently made aging classified as a disease that we can treat and reverse, so which is super exciting. Mm-hmm. And I know that you have the 7 tenets of aging. If you can give us the Cliff Notes version, our viewers can go to your website or the book to get like the full extent, but tell us about the 7 tenets of aging.
Okay, so the first thing you have to know is that many different people sort of subclassify these ideas into different categories. So if you look at Aubrey de Grey, there's the 9 hallmarks, and other people have 10, and other people have 12. And I decided that 7 was a good number, and I sat there with a zillion Post-it notes and sort of reorganized them and fit them into 7. And you could argue that some of the categories aren't exactly perfect, but I thought it was sort of a good number. So the first tenet is DNA alterations, and this is where your viewers are going to go, oh my God, here comes the boring part.
Well, break it down the way you do in the book, because in all
Okay.
honesty, that is so helpful. It's like your information system, the DNA.
Yes. Yes. So I would create a system. It's like the factory system, right? So if you can understand how a factory works, you can understand how the body works. So your DNA is your informational system, right? So if you were going to have a company, it's all of the things that are written down. What are you going to make? What type of widgets do you need? All of the written information. And in cellular world, that's basically boils down to your telomere length and then your epigenetic modifications. So that's tenet one, right? You need instructions. So number two is you need a power source, right? You can't run a company or a factory without energy. So in us, that's going to be your mitochondria. They're the little powerhouses of the cell. If you don't have mitochondria, you don't have energy, and you're not going to function. Three is pathways. In a factory, they would be feedback loops and delivery routes and all that sort of thing. In your body, there's very specific aging and not aging pathways. So that's kind of cool.
Is that where the sirtuins come in?
Yes, that's exactly correct.
Okay.
There's 7 mammalian sirtuins, and I will not bore you with them all, but they're very important, and they fail with time, and they keep you young. And the good news is we can boost all of your sirtuins. So that's incredibly cool.
Yes.
Just because you mentioned it, the other one is AMP kinase. And the reason I mention it is everyone's on these caloric restriction diets. Like they
call
do.
it starvation mode.
Right? No, exactly, right? And I can't do it, but other people do. Is it actually activates your AMP kinase pathway, and that helps you live longer. Moving along,
Yes.
my next category is basically it's repair mechanisms. In the factory mode, it would be quality control, right? You need to check your widgets to make sure they're working. And we have pretty elaborate systems to fix your DNA and your proteins. So that's kind of cool. Of course, it fails with age. We can fix it. Very cool. The next pathway is what I call the security system, right? That's your inflammation.
Yes, I just want to just interrupt or interject for a moment. That was my biggest takeaway, was about inflammation. If you can, or inflammaging as scientific speak, if you can prevent inflammation at the cellular level, you can prevent most aging and diseases, right?
Well, I don't know if you could prevent all of them, but they significantly would be reduced. That's absolutely accurate. Absolutely. And the more we age and the more fat you have, the worse your inflammation system is. It's one of the reasons that overweight people don't do so well with the coronavirus, because once you sort of start releasing these cytokinins, which is part of your inflammatory system, your system just doesn't tolerate it very well. So that's extraordinarily important. You're absolutely right.
Yes. Okay, so moving right along, tenet, was it 5 or 6 that we're on?
I think that's 5. So we get to 6. 6 in my factory model would be all the individual workers. I call it individual cell requirements, because a red cell is different than a liver cell, much like a teenage guy that comes and works for the summer is different than like the old guy that's been there for 50 years, right? Their needs are different,
Right.
Their input's different, their output's different. Just have to treat them separately. And for those people that know a little bit about aging, there's a population of cells called senescent cells that are extraordinarily important and extraordinarily detrimental. And that sort of fits into this category as well. And then lastly, this is my favorite category, it's waste management, because you have to take out the trash.
Yes, yes. 100%. And you have supplements in your protocol that basically address each and every one of these tenets, the tenets of aging. So if you were to have, because I'm not a big pill taker, I have to tell you, and this has been a lot for me. I mean, I am taking now about 20 different supplements, and I had to ease into it because I was really having the worst indigestion. I could only just tell you, I couldn't stop burping. So I had to figure out like the best way to ease it into my system, which I now am capable of doing it, but I have to really get strategic because there are so many. But if you don't want to take 20 to 30 supplements, if you were to choose your top tier, your top 5, which would they be? And tell us a little bit about each of them.
All right, so you are obviously referring to the Panacea because you have read the book. I'm going to back up just a little bit. And I want people to know that it depends on how old you are.
Well, this was one of the things that I read in your book, which is really odd that I didn't know, and most people probably don't know, is the aging process actually starts at the age of 30.
Yes, right. But different things fail at different times.
Okay.
For example, your sirtuin levels don't drop until you're about 40. Your nicotinamide levels somewhere between 40, 42, 43. And everyone notices that their vision starts going about 45. So different systems sort of, you know, bite the dust at different times in your life. So I will back up the panacea by saying that it is probably good to start it in the 40s. And the reason I'm prefacing this is I get emails from people in their 30s all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I'm on the panacea." And I think, oh no, no. There are things that a 30-year-old can and should take, but it's not this. So that's sort of the preface.
Okay.
So the reason it's called the panacea is because I sat there once upon a time playing with what I thought were the top 5, rearranging the letters, and then it dawned on me that kind of spelled panacea. Not exactly, but kind of close enough, right?
Yes.
So the first one is pterodstilbene, and people may have heard of it because it's related to something called resveratrol.
Resveratrol is, yes. What is the difference between the two properties?
So they are extremely close molecules. It's off by just a little bit. Details are not exactly important. They're called, they're considered cousins in the molecular world. Resveratrol is more sexy because it comes from red wine, and the French drink a lot of it, which led to the French paradox, right? They eat a lot of cheese and they smoke and they drink a lot of red wine, and yet they're pretty healthy. So that's how that was sort of discovered. Pterodstilbene is definitely less sexy because it comes from blueberries.
Hard to pronounce. I needed phonetics. Which is more potent?
They're both equally potent. It depends on the bioavailability.
Okay.
And that's a big word that means how much does it get into your body and how long does it stay there and what does it do? Okay. So resveratrol is an extremely awesome molecule, but the bioavailability is pretty lousy. Since people now know how great it is, different companies have worked on delivery systems. So you can get it in a nanomycel or this or that or the other. And so bioavailability has definitely gone up. Versus pterodstilbene, the bioavailability is naturally higher. The caveat to that is a study came out about a year and a half ago that suggested that pterodstilbene could actually make your cholesterol levels be a little bit more elevated.
Well, while we're on the subject, let's talk about NAD, because I'm sure that makes your top 5 list.
Oh, you bet it is. So NAD is a fantastically interesting molecule. And I'm going to science out here for a second, only because I think it's kind of important.
Yes, that's fine.
All right, so number 1, it is a necessary cofactor for your sirtuins. So all of your youthful pathways will not work if you're nicotinamide deficient. So that's number 1. Number 2, your body takes that molecule apart and sticks it in to glue errors in your DNA. And you have 10 to the 5th DNA errors per cell per day, geeky fact. But if you don't have nicotinamide, you're not going to fix your DNA. So that's going to lead to cancer.
Okay.
It is a necessary communication device to mean your nucleus and your mitochondria are talking to each other. So that's extraordinarily crucial. Lastly, probably the most important thing that nicotinamide does is it makes your electron transport chain and your mitochondria work. And that's sort of fancy for if you don't take it, you won't have any energy.
And there are a lot of different trains of thought as to what the best approach is for the delivery system of NAD. So is it NMN? Is it NR? What do you recommend?
Right. So that's a really interesting question. And I try not to recommend one thing over the other because I think it's a money game, to be honest with you. Nicotinamide riboside, which was invented by Chromadex, was the first one available. And it's a brilliant, brilliant product. But they cornered the market, right? So someone else had to come along and invent NMN, which is a step or two away enzymatically. And so people argue, oh, it's not as close, therefore it's not as good. So because these companies have cornered the market on the oral supplementation, you can also get a nicotinamide IV, which people think is cool and hip because IV sounds cool. In reality, I don't really think it's that important because no one's ever died of a nicotinamide deficiency like instantaneously. It takes about a week to 10 days to supplement orally, depending on how old you are. But people do love the IVs. You can also get a nicotinamide patch if you don't like to take IVs or oral. And you can also get a sub-Q injection of nicotinamide. So there are innumerable ways to sort of beef
Wow.
up your nicotinamide deficiencies.
And what age would you start NAD?
Generally speaking, I would say 40.
Okay. Which is one that you would start at 30?
You don't need any nicotinamide, I'll tell you that. I
Okay.
will tell you that anyone in the world needs astaxanthin.
Let's talk about that one next. And astaxanthin. Okay. All right. You have to say this is probably the most fun interview you've ever
Oh, this
had.
is great. Usually they're very boring.
So let's talk about astaxanthin, which is number 2 on your list. Correct?
It absolutely is, because it is one of my all-time favorite molecules. And it is incredibly cool because it comes from the strangest place in the world. It is the green goo in baths, in bird baths.
Ooh,
So
I'm getting a good visual right now.
it's kind of scummy and gross. And if you physiologically stress out those cells, they make this fabulous orangish, pinkish goo. And
Okay.
it protects that organism physiologically. And what's cool is that this little organism and its goo sort of get through the marine system, and anything pink or red is astaxanthin. So salmon is astaxanthin. Quail eggs are astaxanthin. Anything pink, for the most part, is astaxanthin.
Okay, so on the subject of salmon, because we eat a lot of salmon in our house, grilled, poached, baked, steamed, you name it. I believe it was in the book, but I'm not 100% sure. But I do know that you stated that if you are choosing salmon at the grocery store, if it says color added, then it's added with astaxanthin.
Astaxanthin, you
So
got it.
that's healthier?
Yeah, shockingly enough, that is healthier.
Oh my gosh. Okay, who knew?
And it's cheaper, so
Yeah.
it's good.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So let's continue down this next path. We're only doing 5, so we're not going by your whole list, but I know carnosine is one of them, correct?
Yes. So carnosine, so panacea, P-A-N, and then I
Carnosine.
right?
Carnosine.
Carnosine, and it's carnosine, actually, because people get that confused. So it's C-A-R-N-O-S-I-N-E,
I
carnosine.
did phonetics, but obviously I'm not reading it the same as the way you spelled it.
That's totally okay. It is a naturally occurring dipeptide in your body. Weightlifters know it because when they take it, number one, their muscles get bigger, and number two, they don't have the physiologic burn when you're building muscle. So that's kind of cool. But the reason that anti-aging folks want to take it is it's a transglycosylating agent. And I know that's a big fancy word, but essentially one of the problems with aging is we get glycosylated or full of sugar and sugar goo on our insides, and carnosine can actually help prevent it as well as get rid of some of it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, one of the factors that when I was reading your book, which I was completely flabbergasted because I'd never heard of this before, is there are NAC, carnosine eye drops.
Mhm.
And there's been studies around since 1997 on this, if you really do your research, but it's really not common knowledge, and the benefits are huge. Tell us about the eye drops.
So carnosine eye drops are truly amazing, and Russians love carnosine. I don't know if I mentioned it, Japanese love astaxanthin, but Russians have spent eons studying carnosine. And for some reason, I guess we don't trust the Russians. I don't know, but their research is honestly brilliant. And they gave these Russian eye drops to 50,000 Russians, and their vision got better, their cataracts started resolving, if not completely, at least partially. Everyone had fantastic effects. There was no side effects.
Yeah.
So they use them in Russia all the time.
Why is it that we don't know about this here? I actually, knock on wood, I'm going to find some wood around here. I don't need reading glasses, and I'm over 50, and everyone keeps saying, just wait, just wait, just wait. It's going to happen to you too. And I was able to take my driving test and not having to put, needs glasses on the license, which was a huge deal for me. I want to keep my vision intact, so NAC eye drops. Done.
Not exactly. Vision fails for several reasons over time as you age. The good news is that carnosine eye drops will help with what we call presbyopia. And that's the need to wear the reading glasses in the restaurant so you can sign your check.
Then I'm set. But for everyone else out there, if they have other vision problems, what else do you recommend?
Right. So over the course of time, the cells in the back of your eyeball and your retina also start failing. And it just has to do with mitochondrial failure and a variety of other things. So this is other kind of eye drop that's really kind of cool. It's called SKQ1. It's also called Vizomytin, and it's also Russian because these guys are brilliant. But it actually helps with night vision and other types of vision failure over time.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one at all. And can you find it here somewhere?
Sort of. Before COVID, I
You
actually
need to know people that know people.
when I first started using it, I had some folks that, travel back and forth from Russia, and they would go to the local CVS and buy me 20, 30 bottles of it.
Wow.
Now with COVID, I'm temporarily stuck, and I actually sent an email to the makers this afternoon saying, please help me. I need my Vizomytin.
Oh, wow. Okay, Vizomytin people, let's look that up and try to get it somehow.
Good luck with that.
Okay, right. So on to number 5. If we can just choose 5 supplements, what's your 5th top tier?
Curcumin is one of my absolute favorites because it just says very, very cool things. So the most important thing is that it is an anti-inflammatory agent. And this helps people. Obviously, we all have our standard aches and pains, but we also need to get rid of the inflammatory system that sort of builds up over time that causes a lot of the diseases that we worry about. In addition, it is an epigenetic modifier, so that helps obviously our epigenetic profile. The other cool thing, and I don't know if this is going to mean anything to anybody, but it actually helps decrease lipofuscin accumulations in your brain. So as you get older, you just do better. So it's just an incredibly cool molecule.
Great for brain health. And so are all of the ones that you've mentioned also great for skin? Everyone wants to know that. What do you do? Your
Okay.
skin looks great, by the way.
Thank you. It better, right? My believability depends on it. So the answer is any cell that you have in your body is going to do better on the protocol, just hands down. So your skin will look better. Will it look amazing? Depends on what you started with, right? All of a sudden, it's not going to be like, ta-da, it's fantastic, right? Everyone knows this. Stay out of the sun. Cool thing about some of the oral protocol is it blocks sun. Astaxanthin internally blocks sun damage in your skin. So that's crucial. In terms of stuff to put on your skin,
Yes.
all of these really cool things. So you want to put hyaluronic acid on your skin. You want to put centilla on your skin, and you want to put white tea oil on your skin.
Okay. Why white tea oil? I haven't heard of that one.
Because it's an MMP inhibitor.
Okay.
Okay. Light and irritation cause inflammation in your cells. Cells release these things called MMPs that dissolve your collagen. You do not want to dissolve your collagen, so we want to inhibit the MMPs.
Oh, and so do you take that as a supplement as well as putting it on the actual dermis?
So I take 40-ish things a day. So I think anyone would gag if they did all of this.
Okay, I can tell you right now, 40 supplements did not fit into one of them.
No, 25 actually fit in.
Okay, and this is genius. You can buy this also on your website, right?
At the moment you can't because I haven't gotten that far yet. I just had these made but I think they're really cool.
They're really cool.
I know I need to put it on the website. I just haven't gotten that far. So what's really interesting, and here we go, we're gonna geek out again, and I don't know if you're recording or not.
Oh, it's recording.
Collagen gets recycled in your body every 17 years. So it is almost more important to block it falling apart than to build it. That being said, if you take oral collagen, you will actually build more collagen in your body. Okay. Hyaluronic acid turns over every 24 hours. So you actually need to take that more frequently. So I eat hyaluronic acid every day and I slather it on my body every day. The good news is I've decided that your skin actually ages for 9 reasons. And the new book that I am working on now will be addressing all the fantastic things that you can do for your skin in addition to just general anti-aging.
When is this coming out?
Hopefully, as soon as I get done writing it.
How long did it take for you to write the first book? Which I have to say, every single one of you needs to get this book. It's a game changer. How long did it take you to write it?
Gosh, that's a really hard question because I didn't set out to write a book. I started reading about not aging when I was 44, and I published it 4 years later. But it wasn't a direct goal, so it's really hard to say. I think this one is going to be a lot easier and a lot faster. I just have to fit it in with all the rest of my life activities.
And we have to talk about COVID-19. We are in the midst of a global pandemic right now. And some of these supplements that you were mentioning in your protocol, they block the viral entry of the coronavirus. So it could be a great defense system to start taking some of these for that reason as well. So tell us about that.
So it's really interesting that you say that. What's kind of interesting about COVID is that we've seen it, we all know this, right? It attacks people that are older or people that have age-related pathologies. So simply by trying to block aging, we're also blocking some of the aspects of COVID. There's significant overlap between things that you can take for longevity and then things that will help you against COVID. So my favorite agent, as we talked about earlier, astaxanthin, actually increases your immunoglobulins in your mucosa, which means that you are less likely to have the virus get to your cells in the first place. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
ECGC, which is the active ingredient in green tea, is extremely helpful. Quercetin is extremely helpful, and we haven't talked about that one either, but it actually helps get rid of senescent cells, so you can stay young while blocking COVID. That's kind of cool.
Yes.
The curcumin also helps. One of the big problems, as we've heard about on the news lately, is the cytokine release. They call it the cytokinin storm, and that's what attacks most of your organs, which is why people that are slightly overweight have issues, because the more adipose tissue you have, the more cytokines you have. So curcumin can actually help alleviate that, just the same way that the dexamethasone has that's been on the news lately.
Okay. And so what about vitamin C? I heard that.
Yes, C is actually quite helpful, and zinc is actually quite helpful as well.
So here's the list, which everyone can take a screenshot of the various supplements that are recommended. You don't have to take all of these, but if you take a look at the different columns, you can see which ones, if you were just going to take 3 or 4, which ones do multiple things. And the biggest one that you want is to block the cytokinin storm. Well, Sandy, thank you so much for being with us today. Honestly, this information is just mind-boggling, and I'm still learning, and I read your book, and I've been on your website a ton, so I recommend all of you definitely take advantage of this fabulous Kaufman protocol on longevity, because we all want to optimize our health span and our lifespan. And we're going to have you back on as a prelude to your second book, because we all want to learn about, like, you know, best skincare practices. So we have to get the secrets on all of those. But what's great about you is that nothing is a secret. It's just you're fine with providing this knowledge to everyone. A lot of it's on the website, which is completely free. So my hat's off to you. Thank you for doing all of this incredible work and sharing it with us.
It is my absolute pleasure, and this has been fantastic.
Yes. All right. High five. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. We did it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the New 100. Bye.
I'm not backing down, 'cause the future is now. Not backing down, 'cause the future is now.